The Galactic Concord's command center was never silent. It was a place of constant movement, filled with the hum of machinery, the soft murmurs of analysts deciphering transmissions, and the steady pulse of incoming reports. But tonight, an unnatural hush had fallen over the room. The distress signal had arrived an hour ago. It was short, barely a sentence, but it sent a chill through every officer present. Human warship spotted. Extreme caution advised. Then, nothing. The transmission cut off abruptly, like a whisper swallowed by the void. Fleet Commander Valon stood rigid before the holographic display, his three eyes fixed on the last known coordinates of Outpost Theta 9. Just moments ago, it had been a fully functional station, monitoring the neutral zone between Concord space and the uncharted regions. Now it was gone. Not destroyed. Not damaged. Gone. This doesn't make sense. His second-in-command, Officer Sela, exhaled sharply, her tendrils curling in agitation. There are no energy signatures, no debris. If it had been attacked, we would see something. Shattered hull fragments, residual heat, anything. There's nothing, Valon muttered. His claws tapped against the console. Stations don't just vanish, not without a trace. A technician across the room hesitated before speaking. Sir, we ran the signal through our filters. There's something else. Play it, Valon ordered. The transmission replayed, distorted and crackling with interference. But just before it cut off, another sound layered beneath the words, something low, rhythmic, a deep mechanical pulse. A heartbeat. Sela's eyes widened. That's an active scan. Someone was watching them when they sent the message. Valon felt his chest tighten. Can you identify the source? The technician swallowed hard. That's the problem. Sir, the scan signature isn't Concord, and it doesn't match any known species in the database. It's something different. A silence settled over the command center. The implications were clear. The outpost had seen something. A human warship. But it wasn't just the ship that scared them. It was how it had moved. How it had come and gone without a trace. How an entire station had disappeared without resistance, without warning, without even a desperate plea for help. Valon turned to Sela. Deploy reconnaissance teams to the Theta 9 sector. I want a full scan of the area. If there's even a molecule out of place, I want to know about it. Sela hesitated. And if we find the warship? Valon exhaled slowly. Then we pray it doesn't find us first. As the technician scrambled to carry out orders, a single thought ran through his mind. If the humans have returned, what do they want? And why had the first sighting come with a warning instead of an attack? The High Council chamber was alive with anxious murmurs. Representatives from every major Concord species filled the vast hall, their voices rising in confusion and fear. The emergency session had been called within minutes of Fleet Commander Valon's report. A distress signal alone was troubling enough, but the fact that Theta 9 had vanished without a trace sent shockwaves through the ruling body. At the center of the chamber, Supreme Arbiter Relos struck the floor with his ceremonial staff, silencing the crowd. His voice was calm, but the flicker in his bioluminescent skin betrayed unease. The report is clear. Outpost Theta 9 detected an unidentified human warship and issued a warning before disappearing. There were no signs of battle, no wreckage, no known explanation. A heavy silence followed. Then, Grand Strategist Virik, a towering reptilian, leaned forward. This must be a deception. Humans are weak, barely capable of interstellar travel. Their colonies are scattered and insignificant. How could they suddenly produce a warship advanced enough to outmaneuver our fleets? Perhaps they stole the technology, suggested another counselor. Piracy, scavenging. They are survivors, after all. No. The voice that cut through the debate was deep and deliberate. It belonged to Admiral Calros, a veteran of the old wars. His species, the Draken, had fought alongside humans once, long before the Concord had risen to power. His golden eyes narrowed. You are thinking of humans as they were. He turned his gaze toward Valon, who stood before the council. "Tell me, Commander, was there any evidence of human presence at the outpost? Bodies? DNA traces?" Valon hesitated. "None." The tension in the room thickened. A small avian diplomat fluttered her wings nervously. "If they have truly returned, what do they want?" A long pause followed. Then, for the first time, Scylla spoke. "They didn't attack." All eyes turned to her. If humans have the power to erase an entire outpost without resistance, why did they let a distress signal get through? She continued. "They could have destroyed Theta 9 outright, or jammed its communications, or wiped its databanks. But instead, they allowed a message to escape. A warning." A murmur spread through the council chamber. Admiral Calrose grunted. "Perhaps they want us afraid." "Then they have succeeded," Supreme Arbiter Relos admitted grimly. He turned toward the intelligence officers gathered along the chamber walls. "I want everything we have on human history, every battle report, every encounter, every myth. I want to know what we have ignored for too long." He took a slow breath before issuing his final command. "Until we understand the truth, all fleets are to exercise extreme caution upon encountering the human warship." And for the first time in centuries, the Concorde felt something they had long forgotten. Fear. The next few days were filled with frantic searches and mounting paranoia. Recon ships scoured the neutral zone, scanning every possible quadrant with the most advanced sensors in the Concorde fleet. The reports came in, one after another. Nothing. There was no trace of Outpost Theta 9, no sign of the mysterious human warship. It was as if the ship had never been there at all. Fleet Commander Valon's hands clenched into fists as he studied the holographic map before him. He was stationed at the edge of the neutral zone, where the Galactic Concorde's defenses ended and the uncharted regions began. This was a place where few dared to go, where vast stretches of space remained unexplored and unknown. "We are wasting time," Scylla said, her voice barely above a whisper. She stood at his side, her sharp eyes scanning the data reports that filled the air around them. "The human warship is gone. It's nowhere in this sector. If it ever existed, it's disappeared." "Not gone," Valon muttered, his voice tight with frustration. "Just hidden. Whatever it is, it's too smart to be detected. But why is it avoiding us?" He turned back to the tactical display, zooming in on the empty space where Theta 9 had once stood. The area was still, too still. Even the asteroid fields nearby had been eerily quiet since the incident. No unusual radiation, no shifting cosmic currents, nothing to suggest the warship had simply moved on. "Commander, we've detected something," came a voice from one of the sensor's operators. "It's faint, but it's there." Valon's heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" "Energy readings. Not from the human warship, but something else. It's a residual signal, a kind of trail left behind. It's old, almost like it's been laying dormant, waiting." The technician paused, her voice growing more urgent. "It's coming from the direction of Theta 9's last known coordinates." Valon's mind raced. Could it be a trap? A remnant of whatever had wiped out the outpost? Or was the human ship simply leaving breadcrumbs behind, as if it were toying with them? "We're moving in," Valon ordered, his voice steely. "Alert the fleet. We're going to follow the trail." The recon ships took off, slicing through the void like shadowed specters. The energy readings grew stronger as they approached the sector. The feeling of unease began to settle deeper into Valon's chest. Something wasn't right. It was as if they were being led, but by what or whom remained a mystery. As they neared the source of the energy trail, the sensors began to pick up something even stranger. The signal loop. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, and yet it was unmistakable. Someone, or something, had been deliberately guiding them. "Stop the ships," Valon ordered suddenly. His mind snapped into focus. "We've been walking right into its path." The recon ships halted, their engines' hums fading into the silence of space. Valon's hands shook slightly as he stared at the data streaming in. There was no sign of the warship, no trace of it physically, but the residual trail was unmistakable. "Commander," Sella's voice was low. This isn't just a ship. We're dealing with something else, something that knows us, knows how we think. It's hunting us." Valon's mind flashed back to the words of the human captain, the warning that had come through the shattered transmission. Extreme caution. But it was too late. They weren't the hunters. They were the hunted. And the human warship had just made its move. The silent, oppressive tension in the command center had been growing for hours. Valon stood at the head of the table, staring at the flickering map of the neutral zone. The energy trail had led them deeper into uncharted space, but the warship was still elusive, a ghost slipping between their fingers. It had been weeks since they had first received the warning. And still, they had no answers, only more questions. But now, there was a new plan. "We cannot afford to let this continue," Valon said, his voice cold with resolve. "We'll bait it out. The human warship may be elusive, but it will make a mistake." He turned to his officers, his eyes glinting with determination. "We set a trap." Sela, her face lit by the glow of the command console, met his gaze. "You think we can force it to reveal itself? This warship has been playing with us for too long. We don't even know what we're dealing with." Valon nodded slowly, his thoughts grinding together like gears in a machine. He wasn't entirely sure they could catch the warship, but he knew one thing for certain. It wouldn't escape this time. "We'll deploy a decoy, a ship fitted with experimental cloaking technology. It will move along the trail. Let the warship think it has a chance to strike. But we'll be ready." Valon motioned the tactical officer. "Prepare the fleet. We move out in 30 minutes." The command center exploded into activity as officers scrambled to carry out orders. Outside the window, the Concorde warships loomed like massive shadows, their hulls gleaming under the light of distant stars. They were ready for war, but Valon couldn't shake the nagging feeling that this wouldn't be the battle they expected. The decoy ship, a sleek vessel equipped with the latest cloaking technology, slipped silently into the void. Its mission was clear: cross the neutral zone and draw out the human warship, give it a target, a weakness to exploit. Valon's flagship would follow behind, prepared to strike once the human ship took the bait. "We should have launched this sooner," Sela muttered, her eyes scanning the redouts. "If the warship is truly following us, we need to be quick. We're not dealing with just another enemy ship. We're dealing with a predator that studied everything we've done." Valon grunted in agreement but remained focused. He knew the risks of such a bold maneuver. The human warship had shown uncanny intelligence and adaptability. But they couldn't let fear rule their decisions. They had to force its hand. The hours dragged on as the decoy ship moved deeper into the zone, each minute stretching like an eternity. Finally, a signal came through. "It's here," said one of the officers, his voice tight with disbelief. "We've detected a massive energy surge. The warship is moving in, directly toward the decoy." Valon's pulse quickened. "Prepare to deploy the ambush. Lock weapons on the target. Wait for my signal." The decoy ship, cloaked and hidden, continued on its course, unaware of the trap that was now set. The rest of the fleet hovered in the darkness, waiting for the human warship to make its move. They would be ready. They had no other choice. And then, it happened. The decoy ship's scanners flickered, and the crew aboard froze. It was the same pattern they had detected earlier, the faint pulse of a residual scan. But this time, it was clearer, more precise. The human warship had found them. "Now," Valon shouted, "fire." Before the order could even register, the human warship appeared out of nowhere, a massive black shape emerging from the darkness. It was silent, its weapons already glowing with the promise of death. The ambush was destroyed in an instant. "Impossible," Sela whispered. "It knew we were waiting." The human warship didn't just respond to the attack. It seemed to anticipate it, calculating every move before the fleet had even made it. Within moments, the decoy ship was nothing but debris, scattered across the void. And then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the warship vanished. Vaylon's stomach sank. They had failed. The human ship wasn't just fighting them. It was outsmarting them at every turn. They had walked right into its trap. The hunt was on, and they were now the prey. The debris from the decoy ship drifted slowly into the cold emptiness of space, a silent testament to the human warship's power. For a moment, Vaylon stood frozen, staring at the holographic display, unable to process what had just occurred. His fleet was still intact, but the loss of the decoy ship, so easily destroyed, stung more than any physical wound. It was a bitter reminder that they were dealing with something far beyond their expectations. "Commander," Sella's voice broke through the haze of his thoughts. "The human warship has disappeared again. It's gone. It doesn't seem to be pursuing us." Vaylon's hands gripped the console as he struggled to steady himself. This was no longer a mere chase. This wasn't just a warship that could be overpowered or outmaneuvered. It was something far more dangerous, a predator that was picking them apart, one careful strike at a time. "We've failed," Vaylon muttered. "It knows us better than we know ourselves." "It's not over yet," Sella said, her voice tight with determination. "We still have the advantage. It's been playing with us. But that means it wants something. It's not here just to destroy. It's waiting for something." Vaylon turned to face her, his brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Sella's eyes narrowed. "A predator doesn't hunt for no reason. It's testing the herd, seeing which of us are vulnerable. The question is, why?" Before Vaylon could respond, a transmission crackled through the ship's comm system. It was a coded message, one that bypassed standard encryption. His heart skipped a beat. He hadn't expected anything. No response, no word from the enemy. The human warship had made it clear it wasn't interested in diplomacy. But this. Vaylon pressed a button, and the message began to play. A visual appeared on the screen, and a familiar figure stepped into view. An older human captain, his face grim and lined with experience. His voice was cold, yet calm. "We are not your enemy. We were once. We fought for survival, as you did. But now we stand at the crossroads. You are making a mistake." Vaylon's breath caught in his throat. The message wasn't a threat. It was a warning. The captain continued, his eyes steely. "You think we have returned to conquer you. You think we are a dying race, clinging to power. But you misunderstand us. We have evolved. We are no longer the humans you remember. We are not a threat unless you force us to be." Sella's voice barely rose above a whisper. "It's talking to us. It wants us to understand." The human captain paused, and for the first time, something in his eyes softened, almost as if he felt some measure of regret. "We will not attack unless provoked. But we will not stand idly by while you misinterpret our presence. Our warship is not a weapon of destruction. It is a message. And the message is this: you will know the cost of underestimating us." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving only the hum of the ship's systems behind. For a long moment, there was only silence in the command center. The crew was as stunned as Vaylon. A message, not an attack, not a declaration of war, just a warning. Vaylon's mind raced. What did this mean? The human warship was powerful, but it had no interest in battle. Yet the captain had made it clear, if they chose to fight, it would be a war unlike anything the Concorde had ever seen. Sela was the first to speak. "They're not here to conquer. They're here to test us. They're trying to gauge how we will react." Vaylon turned back to the screen, replaying the transmission over and over in his mind. The human captain had made one thing clear. Their return wasn't a mere accident. It was deliberate. And the Concorde had made a grave mistake in thinking they could simply overwhelm them. "Commander," Sela said softly, "I don't think we're dealing with a warship at all. I think we're dealing with something far more dangerous, a species that refuses to be defeated. Vaylon's gaze hardened. Then we'll have to be careful how we approach this. Because if we keep making mistakes, he paused, we might not survive the next one. The message was clear. This wasn't just a fight for territory. This was a battle for survival, and the human warship had already made its first move. The days following the message were filled with tense deliberations. Fleet Commander Vaylon paced the command center, the weight of the decision pressing heavily on him. The transmission had thrown everything they thought they knew into question. The human warship wasn't here to conquer, but neither was it just a simple force of nature. We're not facing an enemy, Sella said, her eyes narrowing as she scanned the analysis of the human message. We're facing a force, one that has been waiting for this moment. They've been watching us, learning our every move. Vaylon nodded slowly, his mind racing. The humans had always been unpredictable. In the past, their species had shown a remarkable ability to adapt and survive, but they had been pushed to the brink. What if this was their evolution, their rebirth? What if they had become something beyond the rest of the galaxy's understanding? We don't know what we're dealing with, Vaylon said, his voice taut. But I won't underestimate them again. The message said they wouldn't attack unless provoked. But we've already seen what they can do. We've seen their ability to disappear, to strike without warning. Sela crossed her arms. What if they don't need to attack us? What if they're trying to provoke us into making a move first? Vaylon's eyes darkened. You think they're trying to bait us into making a mistake? It's not about winning for them, Sela said. It's about proving something. If we attack, we confirm their worst fears, that the Concord is still a threat to their existence. Vaylon stared at the map of the neutral zone, a place that had once been peaceful, now an endless sea of uncertainty. The human warship's ability to hide, to play games with them. There was a deliberate strategy behind it. But what was its true goal? Commander, one of the sensor officers spoke up. We've detected another signal. It's faint, but it's there. It's not an attack. But Vaylon's pulse quickened. Where is it coming from? The officer adjusted the display. It's near the coordinates where the last transmission originated. It's another message. But this one is different. It's almost like a warning to us. Vaylon's stomach dropped. A warning. After all this time, after everything that had happened, they were still receiving warnings. Patch it through, Vaylon commanded. The holographic screen flickered, and once again, the image of the human captain appeared, this time with an even more somber expression. His voice was low and deliberate, each word carrying a weight of finality. You think we are playing games, but we are not. What you don't understand is that we are giving you a choice. We are not your enemy, but you are making us into one. We know how this will end if you continue to follow the same path. Vaylon's fists clenched, his jaw tight. The human captain was cold, calculating. But there was something else there, something deeper, concern. You may not believe us, but we are offering you a chance to avoid a conflict that will have far-reaching consequences. You've seen our strength, and you think you understand it. But you don't. You have no idea what we've become. The transmission cut off before Vaylon could respond. His mind raced, the weight of the captain's words sinking in like a stone. What did the humans mean by what we've become? Were they warning them about a power they didn't fully understand? A new weapon? Or was it something else entirely? Commander, Sela said quietly, breaking the silence. They're not just telling us to back off. They're telling us that we're on the verge of something bigger than we realize. They want us to see the cost of provoking them further. Vaylon rubbed his temple, his thoughts spinning. They were trapped in a game they didn't fully comprehend. The humans were making their presence felt, not through brute force, but through their psychological warfare, making the Concord question every decision, every move. We need to be careful, Vaylon finally said, turning to face the officers. We've been reacting to them based on our understanding of their power. But they've changed. We need to learn more, before it's too late. Sela nodded, her expression hard. We're no longer just facing a warship. We're facing a species that has adapted beyond our recognition. Valon took one last look at the coordinates, the invisible lines of power stretching across the galaxy. If the humans were right, if they had truly evolved beyond their old selves, then the Concord was facing a force they couldn't even imagine. And there was only one question left. Would they adapt in time to survive? The days dragged on with increasing tension. Every time Valon and his crew thought they had a handle on the situation, something new would emerge, shifting the balance of power. The humans, it seemed, were playing a game with no rules, only their own. They didn't want war, but they were also unwilling to be ignored. They wanted something, but what? We've been on the defensive this entire time, Scylla remarked, her voice tinged with frustration. They know everything about us, and we still don't even understand their true intentions. We're just reacting, like pieces on their chessboard. Valon stared at the holographic map, lost in thought. The humans had been right. They had underestimated their abilities. The message, the sudden appearances and disappearances, it was all part of a larger plan, a strategy that no one in the Concord had predicted. It wasn't just about the warship's power, it was about what lay beneath it. "Commander," came a voice from the communications officer. "We've intercepted another transmission. It's different this time." Valon felt a chill crawl up his spine. They had just barely recovered from the last message. And now this. He motioned for it to be patched through. The human captain's image appeared once again, but this time his face was graver, more resigned. There was no arrogance in his eyes, only a deep sadness. "You still don't understand, do you?" The captain's voice was quieter than before, as if he was speaking not to the Concord, but to himself. "We are not your enemies. We never were, but you continue to act as if we are. It is your fear that fuels this conflict, not us." The words hit Valon like a physical blow. The truth, as hard as it was to admit, was becoming clearer with every passing moment. The humans weren't fighting them. They were merely showing them the consequences of fear. The captain continued, his tone deep and reflective. "You asked for peace. You pleaded for it when the war was over, when you thought we were done. But you were wrong. We never were. We adapted, we evolved. And now we offer you the same choice we gave our ancestors, to either change with us or remain forever in the past." A heavy silence followed. Valon felt the weight of the words pressing against him. This wasn't a threat. It was an ultimatum. The humans were offering a choice, evolve or remain in the dark, unprepared for the future that was already unfolding. "We cannot stay in the past," Sela said softly, her voice carrying the realization they had all been avoiding. "If we do, we will become irrelevant. The humans are showing us something we haven't seen yet. Our future. But are we ready for it?" Valon's fists clenched. He had always believed in the strength of the Concord, in its power to adapt and overcome. But this was different. The humans weren't offering a war. They were offering a revolution. The question was no longer about surviving this warship, but about whether they could survive a world where the rules were being rewritten, where they were no longer the dominant force in the galaxy. "What if they're right?" Scylla asked, her voice barely a whisper. "What if we're too late to change?" Valon turned toward her, his gaze hardening. "We're not too late. Not yet." He turned to face the rest of the crew, his voice resolute. "We are at a crossroads. The humans are right about one thing. We can't stay where we are, but we won't give up our place in the galaxy without a fight. We're not ready to evolve on their terms. We'll evolve on our terms, and we'll show them we can face whatever future they think they're offering us." He looked back at the map, the neutral zone where the humans had been hiding, and for the first time, he saw it not as a place of fear, but of possibility. If they could break free from the constraints of the past, from the old ways of thinking, maybe there was a chance for something greater, something beyond war. Valon's voice grew firm. "Prepare for a final confrontation. But this time, we won't just react. We'll strike first. We will define this conflict, and we'll make our own future." Sela's eyes met his, her expression mixed with determination and doubt. "And if we're wrong?" Vaylon didn't hesitate. "Then we face the consequences, but we face them on our terms." The message had been clear. The humans weren't just challenging their strength, they were challenging their beliefs. And now, it was up to the Concord to decide. Would they cling to the past, or would they step into a new era? There was no turning back now. The days leading up to the final confrontation were filled with restless anticipation. The fleet had been readied, the weapons primed, and the battle strategies drawn. Vaylon stood before the command center's main window, staring into the vastness of space, the quiet hum of the ship's engines a constant reminder of the tension that had settled into every corner of the Concord's fleet. The humans had issued their ultimatum, and they had made their position clear. The choice was theirs, and they had spent every moment since weighing the consequences. To adapt, to embrace this new uncertain future, or to fight for what they knew, for the way things had always been. "We've reached the coordinates," Sela reported, her voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of uncertainty. "The human warship is in position. It's just beyond the neutral zone, awaiting us." Vaylon nodded, turning to face his crew. "This is it. We can no longer afford to wait. We've been reacting to the humans this whole time, trying to understand their intentions, their strategy. But now we take the initiative. We show them that we're not afraid to carve our own future." But deep down, Vaylon knew the truth. He had no idea what the humans were truly capable of, what their next move would be. And no matter how prepared they were, the truth was they were walking into the unknown. The human warship loomed in the distance, a shadow against the stars, its dark hull almost blending into the backdrop of the void. There was no sign of movement, no indication of an impending attack, but Vaylon felt the weight of its presence, the invisible tension pulling at the edges of space itself. "We don't even know what we're facing," Sela said quietly, standing beside him, her eyes never leaving the ship. "What if we're wrong? What if this choice is more dangerous than we realize?" Vaylon's voice was low but firm. "If we don't act, we risk losing everything. The humans have shown us their power, their intelligence, and their resolve. But we are the Concord. We are not weak. We don't back down from a fight." "We never did," Sela agreed, though her gaze lingered on the warship. "But sometimes, a fight isn't just about strength. It's about knowing when to stop." Vaylon turned away from the window and addressed the crew. "Prepare for battle. We strike at first light." The final countdown began, and as the crew scrambled to finalize their preparations, Vaylon couldn't shake the gnawing feeling in his chest. He'd been through countless battles, faced enemies that seemed insurmountable, but this time was different. This time, they weren't just fighting for dominance. They were fighting for their very future, for their way of life. But at what cost? As the fleet moved forward, the human warship finally shifted, its massive engines igniting in a slow, controlled pulse. It was not retreating, but it wasn't charging forward either. It was waiting. Vaylon's comms officer spoke up, his voice shaking. "Commander, we're receiving a signal. It's not an attack. It's another message." Vaylon's heart sank. Another message. He'd hoped they were past this. The time for words was over. They needed action, not more cryptic warnings. The screen flickered to life, and once again, the human captain's face appeared. This time, he looked even more somber than before. His voice was calm, but the weight of his words felt like a heavy cloak pressing down on Vaylon's shoulders. "You still have a chance, but time is running out. You've chosen your path, but remember this. There's no going back. Once you cross that line, there is no return." Vaylon's fingers tightened around the console. The captain's words hit like a hammer, but they also echoed a deep truth. What they were about to do was irreversible. The warship was offering them a choice, but it was clear that once they made it, The consequences would be final. The captain's image flickered one last time, his expression now almost resigned. You will know the cost of your decision. I only hope it's not too late for you. The transmission cut off, and the silence in the command center was deafening. We have to make our move now, Valon said, his voice low but resolute. This isn't just about winning. It's about showing them we are not afraid. We have to fight for our place in the galaxy. The humans have shown us their strength, but we will never let them define us. Sela met his gaze, her expression unreadable. She had always believed in him, followed him without question. But now, she, like the rest of them, was wondering if they were truly ready for the choice they were about to make. We move out, Valon ordered, his voice firm. We fight for our future. We fight for the Concord. The fleet surged forward, engines roaring as they closed the distance between themselves and the human warship. Every officer aboard knew this battle would define everything. The future of the Concord, the future of the galaxy, and the future of every species that would live to tell the tale. And as they moved toward the precipice, Valon realized that this war was not just a battle of ships, but a battle of ideologies, one that would determine whether the Concord would evolve, or whether they would be left behind, swallowed by the tide of change. The choice had been made. The future would soon be written in the stars.